Derek Edmond, thank you so much for joining us on the ROINU Career Success Tips show. I am thrilled to have you on. We have actually known each other, I would say at least a dozen years now.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be. Certainly over 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
back to the
Even-
SEO, Boston Cambridge SEO meetup days.
Yeah.
And have you been at co-marketing the whole time?
I've been in co-marketing since 2005. Been around since
Awesome.
2004. So yeah, it's been,
That's so
I'm a
great.
dinosaur in this, so to speak. Yeah.
I hear you. And you're
Mhm.
the managing partner there now. And from your
Yes.
perspective, before we jump into your background, I'd love to hear some insights from you on what you're seeing in digital marketing today. I know a lot of agencies are super, super busy, but for someone who maybe doesn't have, maybe had an internship or maybe didn't,
Mhm.
what does it look like from your perspective, and what do you think that they should know about digital marketing and working at an agency like yours?
Well, I think one of the interesting things that maybe people don't realize, and hopefully it's not too frustrating, is there's a lot of job openings. People are looking for good hires, good talent, good team members. Um, but there's a flood of applicants as well. So it's challenging to kind of cut through the noise, I guess, and get that opportunity because everyone's busy. Because people are looking for new team members, you just don't have a lot of time.
Mm.
And I can only speak towards the small circle that I have, but I'm pretty confident that everyone's looking for good help. They're struggling to find good help, and but then they're also inundated with so many things that it gets difficult. Gets difficult to find those right people, and when you do, you want to try to hold on to them as best as you can.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. And but you have a really strong track record of people being with you for a long time. I know back in my conference going days, I'd always run into some of your team, and yeah, they would be there and there and there and there and be with you guys forever.
I'd like to think that it'd be nice to yeah. I think we try to do our best, and I think the big difference is learning from your mistakes and just trying to improve all the time. Like one thing I've certainly learned over the years is you're always learning in this. You're not, you never certainly never perfect, but you're just trying, and you want to listen to your team. You want to listen to what's going on and adapt. That just there's just new opportunities all the time to get better. There's always a
Awesome.
place to improve.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about, as I like to say, it's too easy to click, right? You're dealing with a flood of applicants for positions you have open. What
Mhm.
might be some ways that someone may be able to stand out?
I mean, a few things that come to mind, and I'm thinking about this in reference to at one point I did all of the pre-screening.
Wow.
I was looking at all of the resumes. So let's say we have a job posting for like a content marketing professional
Hmm.
or a digital marketing analyst, relatively entry level role.
Hmm.
You're going to get hundreds of
Wow.
applications. Um, and even for roles that are a little bit more specialized, you're still going to get maybe 100.
Hmm.
So you really want to, in my opinion, do a few things to stand out. You want, as funny as it might sound, you still want a cover letter, and you want to customize that to the audience that you're looking to work with, and know a little bit about the organization. Spend the extra time to do that, and tailor your resume to at least the industry,
Right.
but ideally emphasizing at the very front. Here are the most important skills and experiences that I have, that I bring to the table, and ideally in your cover letter you're aligning that with how that relates to the particular organization that you want to interview for, because otherwise it's just so difficult. It's just so difficult to figure out. This person could be great. They could be great, but they don't on paper look any different, or I guess digitally in PDF or
Mm.
document format,
Sure.
they don't look any different than the next person. And so you're
Yeah.
picking and choosing, unfortunately, based off of some of that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I imagine, I mean, you are also running the agency. So you don't necessarily have time to dedicate to parsing through all these applicants. Another point that I thought was interesting from a different from an earlier show was how maybe people who are doing the pre-screening are not as skilled at that role. You know, for a smaller agency, you may not have all the resources that a larger agency might, and that it's almost even harder for an applicant to stand out.
Absolutely. Our agency is one where we have a recruiter that's doing all
Mm-hmm.
the training. And you keep in mind that they're very talented and I love working with them because they're so knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I have to believe that in many cases, you're giving someone a series of check boxes.
Yeah.
Here's what we need, and here's what you need to look for, and that in and of itself puts applicants at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't really know what those check boxes are, and you shouldn't assume you would, that makes it difficult, right?
Yeah.
You, you you've got like, especially in digital marketing, you really think of the fact that you probably have 15 seconds, 15 seconds to
Mm-hmm.
catch someone's attention, whether that be in your subject line, your cover letter, your intro statement, whatever that might be. And if you don't do it, you're getting archived, you're getting the auto response of whatever it is. So it's important. It's important to try to stand out as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about your background and how you, what your dinosaur origin story is.
I mean, we were joking about this before, right? And just how marketing, you don't need that programming background, or maybe engineering background to get in. Um, Coincidentally, I was just a bad developer. Maybe not a bad developer, but I just wasn't a very good one. And I was doing front end work, and I started getting into search engine marketing because it was sort of this extension
Mm-hmm.
to what developers were doing, and I really liked it. And thinking dinosaur, right? I was getting involved in that before Google was even a dominant player in the market.
Wow.
They were just one of the players.
Mm-hmm.
So that allowed me to differentiate myself, and it became a career. Once search took off,
Yeah.
it became just a career. I had the good fortune of being around people and learning from people that not only understood websites and web marketing, but marketing in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so audiences, your customers, and why any of this matters from a
Right.
business perspective, and that's a piece that I don't, I wouldn't expect people to know at the very start, but it was something that helped me along the way.
Mm.
So with that, I was able to we started in just purely search engine marketing. We expanded to social media marketing as that sort of took off, and content was always a part of it. But now over the last 10 years, content marketing is a huge thing as well, and we needed it. We work primarily with business to business customers,
Sure.
and they, just like any marketer, they have limited resources and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of and competitive goals and objectives. And we ended up just helping become an extension of their teams
Right.
by not just giving them an idea, that's fine, but helping them
Mm-hmm.
execute that through content development, through campaign management, um, you know, these elements of digital marketing that actually put real meat to the programs that we were providing for them.
Fantastic. So it's almost like learning as it's growing, as the whole industry has evolved. And I feel that way too. You know, having left the globe 13 years ago now, that I kind of came in just as Google Analytics was starting to become a thing, and I would go
Okay.
to conferences and people would be like, "Yeah, look what you can do, look what you can find out," and it was super interesting. And I think content marketing is so huge, and such a major portion of digital that you don't need a lot of technical skills. What's your take on that? Do you think, do you need to know pivot tables? How does that all work? How much facility do you need to have with the spreadsheet?
Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt. by any means. It doesn't hurt to learn those things.
Hmm.
One thing we try to do organizationally is we give people like milestones for things that they should learn.
Okay.
And so, yes, as much I don't even know how to create a pivot table myself, and I'm saying this now live, right? Acknowledging this fact that
You have people.
I consistently have to go back though and make sure that I review how to do some of the formulas in Excel when I need to use them.
Hmm.
But I mean, and that's a good thing about the internet in and of itself is there's so much you can learn independently, and you need to continue to keep learning.
Hmm.
Because while you might get training courses and webinars or whatever it might be that help you with this, you have to do some independent practice as well
Hmm.
to really know some of the ins and outs so you can talk to it better.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, focus on a few skills, get them, and there's so much free or at least available resources that are fairly low cost to do this.
Hmm.
Um, and then you expand from there as you
Right.
need to learn more and get more depth into what you're doing.
Definitely, definitely. And those hands-on opportunities, I think, are really important. We, in our past shows, we've had a lot of discussions about what are some ways that emerging professionals and recent grads and career changers can actually get their feet wet with digital marketing. And a lot of times people will say, well, just volunteer, find an organization who needs some help and sit down and figure it out. Is that something that would stand out to you for a recent grad if you were looking at them as a candidate?
Yeah and no. I
Okay.
mean, I personally, when we have internships, when we do internships, for example, we always pay our interns.
Yep.
I don't like. I personally just don't like people working for me for free.
Yep. I'm
um,
with
I
you
just
100%.
I don't feel good about it. I think
Yep.
that is an avenue though. In particular, depending on what your passion is.
Hmm.
So for example, like there's probably tons of nonprofits, charities that need
Hmm.
help, and they could be look that's an opportunity, particularly if that's something that you have a passion for, a particular cause or a particular issue that's out there per se.
Hmm.
The other thing is, just quite simply just build your brand, your personal brand.
Hmm.
Start a website, mess around with the free tools that are out there that allow you to create custom graphics or to crop photos. I mean, a lot of people, my kids can build websites now, and they were building websites before they were teenagers. So, you have to keep that in mind, but also, so what's the next step? If everyone can do that, what's the next step?
Right.
Well,
Interesting.
you know, explore how LinkedIn, the functionality in LinkedIn, not just like the posting, but other elements of it work. Take some
Hmm.
of the tutorials, the free tutorials that they have. Um, just run a small ad campaign in Google Ads. That might be something that from a volunteer perspective you end up doing. Like, it just gives you those like very specific skills that you didn't have before. And one of the kind of cool things too in digital marketing is there's so many things to do that you can try these things and determine, I like this versus another thing, right?
Right. Interesting.
So um, you can decide, okay, I'm going to emphasize this area. Maybe I like writing more,
Hmm.
or I like design, or whatever it might be, or I like working in Salesforce, right?
Hmm.
As a maybe kind of more bigger level type thing to think about. But there's all of these just different opportunities to learn and then pick and choose where you might want to focus, at least for the short term,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
few years out.
Yeah, and I would say, in the evolution of digital marketing, it has become so. I mean, at least from my perspective, I tend to be a generalist, and so there's only so much depth I can go into. So then, but I know enough about what that does so that I can
Hmm.
say, okay, we need to bring in an expert for this.
Hmm.
And there's so many layers to all these different channels that you could just specialize only in LinkedIn or only in Google Analytics. Are there specific skills or areas of focus that you think are in greater demand than others?
Well, I mean, I, I can venture guesses. I think
Yeah,
it's different.
sure.
I think it's different for everyone. It's different for every industry. It's different for
Hmm.
for every organization. I mean, working in advertising platforms. The good thing with that is it's very, I guess, black and white in terms of the operation. So if you know how to do if you know how to run advertising campaigns,
Hmm.
like you know the ins and outs, that's a very valuable skill to have at the very onset. Um, and then you can build upon that with your marketing background, with a person's marketing background, by
Right.
understanding the business and the audience and the target markets and how that resonates, so to speak. Um, Another area, being familiar with WordPress, how
Right.
WordPress works, plugins, just administration, how to create content in an efficient but also high valued fashion. That
Right.
can be important. I mean, there's so many websites, so many organizations that rely on WordPress for their digital experience. So that's another place to focus. And then you pick and choose. You start to look at the jobs that are out there,
Hmm.
and you pay attention to the skills that these jobs are asking for.
Right.
And with that in mind, you can then start to cherry pick where you need to learn more.
Sure.
So, let's say it's social media. Social media is where you really want to work in organization social media campaigns. You go to, whether it's LinkedIn or Indeed or wherever, and you start looking at those job postings and the requirements.
Hmm.
And with that in mind, you put together your checklist. Here's what I need to learn, or
There
here's
you
what I need
go.
to get better at in order to be successful.
That is fantastic advice. And I think, one of the things is there are just so many resources out there. Are there any in particular that you would recommend?
Well, for us specifically, this is where I'm focused. Google has a ton of free resources and certifications you can get, whether that's
Hmm.
Google Ads, Google Analytics, and there's probably others, within all of their
Hmm.
platform offerings that you can tackle as well. LinkedIn has their learning center. I think some of it's free, but some of it you might have to pay a little bit of money for.
Sure.
But there's a bunch of coursework there. And then there's industry publications. I'll just call out a few. Search Engine Journal, I know in the search market they have resources you can use. SEM Rush, we consistently recommend for team members that they check out some of the stuff in SEM Rush because they have an academy that they launched. Moz,
Nice.
MOZ,
Yep.
has some resources also for people to use, just to get your feet wet and to learn a little bit more.
Hmm.
Those are some of the places to start out. Again, I tend to believe that they give you the foundation,
Hmm.
but it doesn't replace actual hands-on experience.
Right.
So you review them and then you apply them.
Right. Right. Yeah. And this is very much the way that ROIinU is set up so that we are taking a topic area, right? Whether it's paid or SEO or content. Content is actually woven through the whole course, but
Yeah.
we are working, we're learning, we're doing that background, um, educating ourselves. And then we bring in an expert to help us understand some of the nuances and how does that apply to a client so that
Hmm.
everyone has the opportunity to apply all those skills. And then again, that expert feedback loop comes in to say, oh, did you think about this? What about that? I think that that's the perfect blend of asynchronous and synchronous learning and just reinforces what you're doing because I can read things all day. I
Hmm.
recently just did a whole lot of research into lives and how to do lives and how to maximize and which tools. And I mean, it was a whole huge project. But
Hmm.
until you actually sit down and do it and do this, right? That's where the learning really happens is the applied learning. And that's one thing that I'm very passionate about and have been with my internships that I've offered and also with my courses. So I totally agree. And that's really one of the major things with ROINU is yeah, you can sit back and read all those things and you can listen to every podcast they ever make, but
Yeah.
to apply it and then get that feedback is where the real magic happens.
Yeah. And absolutely. and just be a little curious.
Hmm.
You have to be a little bit curious in all of these things. Like, I was thinking TikTok. We don't do anything with TikTok at co-marketing, but
Hmm.
it's a great platform for people.
Yeah.
But instead of just watching what's there, pay attention to how they're doing it,
Hmm.
and both like sort of like and ask yourself the question, well, how did they literally do that?
Yeah.
What did they use? What type of equipment? What type of functionality? Create a few videos. You don't have to publish them.
Yeah.
um, but just try it to immerse yourself in the experience, so you understand it a little bit more. And the same can be said whether it's Instagram, or Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
Given those type of experiences also. And then with video, video, just try it, see how
Yeah.
it goes, right? I have a colleague that she's creating a bunch of videos now, and it's awesome, and she's doing a great job with it. And it's just exciting to see people want to continue learning, right? Because
Yeah.
that's we kind of you the cool thing, I guess, but it's also stressful, is you're always learning in digital marketing,
Hmm.
right? You know.
Yeah. Mastery is like that carrot that is somewhere off in the distance that, and then finally you gain mastery and then it changes.
Yeah, I've always tended to feel that, like, if I've ever felt comfortable, then something is like there's an ominous feeling of something bad happening. Like, I can't get too comfortable. There's always something else to learn, something else to explore.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense in terms of digital marketing for brands too, right? Like you can't silo yourself just in one. LinkedIn is an amazing tool, especially for B2B, but it changes all the time. They, I think, are notorious for moving things around and swapping things out. And, you could be over investing in one particular feature that then they decide, oh, we're abandoning this. So great.
Yeah.
And that's the same with any type of skill. I feel in digital marketing, it's not static.
Well, it's definitely, that happens in Google all the time too, and I'm sure Facebook. The one thing to say there is, especially when you're working with an organization, so you're working for a company, or you're working in, if it's an agency, you're working
Hmm.
on behalf of a company, is it just behooves you to learn more about that target market.
Hmm.
Um, I really want, when I'm working on behalf of a client, I want to know just as much about their target market as they know,
Yeah.
because if I know that, then I can validate whether the next new thing is really appropriate or not, or how appropriate it's going to be in the short term, perhaps.
Hmm.
Do I need to pivot everything we're doing to focus in on the new shiny thing that's out there, or is there something we can glean from something else that we're already doing? Um, so it's, and if you're focused on the target audience, if you're focused on whoever your client or your organization's target audience is, when you're in the marketing discipline, that's just critical.
Yeah.
Um, and because it's more difficult to reach them now. That's part of the puzzle too. It's just so much more difficult to reach them.
Right. Right. Yeah. And is only going to get more so, right? Once they pull cookies away and all these other key foundations that we have relied on as digital marketers. But I think you're making a really good point that the other side of the coin to everything, all the technology changing all the time and all the tools and the platforms changing all the time, is the fundamentals of behavioral, and how people engage and interact and what their motivations are. Those don't change and really haven't. If you really dive into the behavioral perspectives, it's pretty fascinating. And then it's just a matter of learning what those philosophies are, right? Because I would say it's really a philosophy,
Mhm.
and then applying that. You have to layer it on top of what does the client want, what does the person who is a potential client of theirs want, and
Mhm.
then what are all those drivers, how do you pull those things together, and then which technology, which tools are going to meet that goal.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Measurement and tracking is critical
Mm-hmm.
to what we're doing and what digital marketers need to do. But sometimes it's being able to communicate why this makes sense for a particular target audience, and putting
Mhm.
yourself in their shoes. What is this customer going through or thinking about in the buying process or in whatever process, whether it's education or research or just information, just publishing, what's going to resonate with them?
Right.
um, and then just, yes, and then coming back. Well, how do we track it? Right. But don't stop doing things,
Right.
um, because you can't always get the tracking down perfectly. I mean, it's such a challenge now. There's so much new technology coming out, and continuing to evolve. It's there partially, and some people do an amazing job with it, and others are, but most people I think are struggling. I would have to believe.
Yeah, I mean, just the overwhelm factor, right? Like, there's so many different tools and technologies out there. Are there any, you mentioned TikTok, are there any other sort of emerging or the tried and trues that you think are really worth that? I guess one question is, what would make a resume or a cover letter stand out? Is there, you could say, oh, I did all the Google certifications, but like you said, those that may or may not make you stand out. What are some standouts?
Well, it's not just the certifications, but like, did you run a campaign? And if you ran
Mm-hmm.
a campaign, what did it do?
Right.
Do you know what it did? Um, I will say, just selfishly, that yes, Google Ads experience immediately stands out to me, and to our team,
Yeah.
um, if we're seeing that. But most people don't just like have the opportunity to just sit there and run a campaign, let alone if you're looking for a job. It's not like you have money to just go spend on Google Ads
Mm,
information. That, to your point, is like a good opportunity. If you're donating time to a charity or to a cause, most of them get Google grants,
right.
which is essentially Google giving them money to run their Google Ads
Mm-hmm.
programs. So if you have the good fortune of helping, learning, and running that's hands-on experience actually in the platform.
Right.
But it comes back to, no matter what you want to do and what you want to learn, illustrating the actual results that you got from that.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you do, or how did you take it from point A to point B?
Yeah,
That's what
definitely.
people want to see.
Yeah, and when you have administrative access, so let's say you are volunteering to promote an event at the local animal shelter. Um, if you have admin access, you should be able to get to those insights so that you can show I did X, Y, and Z. I shared this so many times. So many people saw this, and so many people attended, and we saw this difference in attendance from this year to last year. We raised X much more money. We did the event even though people don't want to come out through COVID. Just basic
Right.
things like that. Yeah, I think that that's really fantastic advice. So we just have a couple minutes left, and I'm just wondering if there's anything that you think would be really good for a career changer or emerging professional to know about. And this is the sort of ask. Tell us anything.
Oh wow, tell us anything. Well, just I put that quote right in my slides, and
Yeah.
just don't be afraid to make mistakes, just learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
It's really yes, there's analysis or paralysis by analysis, and there's just the uncomfortability of making decisions in this world, especially now the way things are. But learn from your mistakes, and just try and make those decisions, and then if they don't work out, what could you have done differently? I think that's a key piece in this. And don't get frustrated, especially if you're out there looking for new opportunities. You're probably going to get a lot of rejections or
Right.
a lot of ignored messages, and try not to get frustrated, but put that extra time in. Research the companies you're looking for. Think about how you're going to differentiate yourself for that role and for that organization. um, and keep at it. Talk to your friends, talk to your peers about what you could do differently next time if you're not
Mm-hmm.
sure. You know, there are roles out there, I think, is what I will just say. There's
Yeah.
opportunities out
Yes.
there, and it's just
Tons.
people are dying to find the candidate that is willing to take that extra time to differentiate themselves. So
Definitely.
just don't get
Definitely.
frustrated with the process. I know it's
Awesome.
difficult.
Well, thank you so much, Dirk. Really appreciate it. And we love hearing all of your insights. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.